How are we doing, Am?
Yeah, good, thanks, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Bank holiday weekend, and I'm flying out tonight. So Italy for a long weekend. So I'm super looking forward to it. It's been a busy old week.
Oh, nice, very
yeah,
nice. Where are you going in Italy?
Going to the Amalfi Coast. So lucky enough to have family who have a hotel down there. So yeah, I'm gonna go sit in the sun, eat some pasta,
Very
have some
nice.
beers. Yeah, exactly. I'm reset a bit.
Excellent.
Really lucky to be joined today by Ana Jakimovska. How are we doing, Anna?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me, and lovely to see you both. And
Thank you for coming on.
We're gonna need to know what the name of that hotel at some point if you want to do some advertising for your family and for us.
You should totally do it.
Yeah, the Open Gate Hotel is really cool. Check it out. In Priano, which is right in the middle of the Amalfi Coast. It's stunning. I think everyone hears about the Amalfi Coast and you either hear about Amalfi or Positano. And right in the middle, there's this little fishing village called Priano, and it's immense. I've sent people there on honeymoons, and I've only ever had positive feedback. Yeah, it's really cool.
Does it get, because of like what it's in between, does it get a lot of tourists to that?
Super amount of tourists, yeah. Lots of Americans. It's really strange. Like go different places in Europe, you don't really see too many Americans. Like if you're in Spain and places like that, like the Amalfi Coast is like really hot for tourism, and especially like I say, a lot of Americans. It's a beautiful place. Anyway, we're not on a holiday podcast as much as I could talk about the Amalfi Coast all day long. We're super lucky to be joined by Anna. Anna and I actually did a podcast for the Insider last year, so that's how we've met, and got really positive feedback off the back of the podcast. And obviously, the new OnPoint podcast has evolved, and we're really keen to bring Anna on board. I guess first of all, it'd be good for people who didn't listen to the last one and who aren't aware of you, Anna, to maybe do a little bit of an introduction in terms of who you are and where you are at the moment.
Yes, sure. So I am currently in a startup called Culture Trip. I've been there for about 2.5 years. I've started as a VP of content, and currently I'm the CEO, essentially running the operation. In between, I did Chief Product and Technology Officer role as well. I have a background in media, so I've been working for various kind of publishers and broadcasters before joining Culture Trip. That's my first startup. So prior to Culture Trip, I was 2 years at The Guardian, being the director of product. Before that, I was at the BBC in a product role, Sky News, Channel 4, ITV, Which. So pretty much I've done most of the sort of major players in the media space. And Culture Trip also has a content sort of side to it. So it felt like it's the right sort of move from established companies into startups to get a sort of more wider, I guess, experience with different companies at different stages of their growth.
Amazing. Well, it was a fantastic journey, and I think that's one of the key things that we wanted to discuss today. Something that Am and I are super passionate about, especially Amardeep, is obviously women in technology in general, but in terms of women technology leaders. And I think that when we did the podcast, it was a case we wanted to promote women in technology and do as much as we can to kind of raise awareness. And it made a lot of sense to invite you on to discuss this, because your journey is fantastic. I'm sitting here with two fantastic, female technology leaders, and it's great to hear about the kind of journeys that you've been on and how you've got to where you are today. And I guess that that's probably not a bad place to start. Like how to where you are now, all these different companies that you've been on, the journey that you've had. How have you found that as women in technology, and how have you kind of, I think the whole message is that we want to push and we want to get more women technology leaders, but how's your journey been to get to where you are?
I think, well, I'm probably one of the kind of hopefully many example of women who were very supported in career in tech, both from men and women throughout my journey. It sort of starts for me. It started at the university, where obviously when you're doing computer science, we were 3 women in the class, and we were, very much supported and ensured that we don't feel the environment being sort of out of the ordinary with that sort of level of gender representation. And then within sort of, I came to the UK to do a master's and a PhD in artificial intelligence, which I've completed. within the research space, I must admit, the diversity seems to be a little bit better than what it is in the private sector. So from that perspective, you know, when I was at the university doing my research, it felt much more comfortable. It felt much more mature in terms of the representation and the different voices. And then in the media sort of sector, again, I think the media sector has always been early adopters of trends, have always been sort of at the time at the forefront of the digital transformation. I also felt sort of very supported, very sort of keen for the leaders and my peers to succeed in any sort of career goals that I had. And also have been privileged enough to be part of initiatives that were deliberately kind of discriminating, if that's the right word, positively discriminating women in leadership positions. So, for example, when I was in Sky News, I was part of the Women in Leadership sort of cohort, which was a group that was given various types of support and mentors at very senior positions to share basically findings, the pitfalls and the good things around progressing within the career ladder in the leadership role in tech. So that has been sort of very encouraging, and you know, from my perspective, a big part of my success was that it was enabled by the right type of people. That is not to say that my journey is completely without challenges. I think it would be unrealistic to think that, but I would imagine, in comparison to, you know, in a society like the United Kingdom, probably it's easier to sort of progress than some more traditional and more sort of conservative societies around the world. So I do feel privileged in many ways. I've also worked extremely hard. And in a way, one of the responsibilities that I believe all women in leadership have is to basically support emerging female talent in every sort of walk of life and in any industry, because from all the statistics that we've seen, having equal representation, not just gender-wise, social class-wise, yields much better results. And there's multiple studies that the data is undisputable, that it's good for business, alongside that morally is the right thing to do for kind of societies that progress.
That's a really, really good. Sorry, am I okay to jump in? Yeah, that's a great answer, Anna. That's a great answer. It's interesting. I speak to so many females and women in leadership, but not just in leadership, just women in their careers in general. And I speak to a lot of career changes, and it's really nice sometimes to hear such a positive answer to that question. And of course, everybody has challenges, but having support around you right from university, because I really believe that Ben asked a question right at the beginning, which was, you know, how do we get more women in tech? How do we get more women in this and that? And actually, it starts way before they start their career, and it's about the choices we give young females and the choices we give young girls. It's the paths we open to them, and for me, it goes even further to it's the narratives created way before as children we even are learning, and we're soaking in our environments. And there's one thing that always bothers me. I haven't got children, Anna, I'm not sure if you do, but honestly, when I'm old enough to go to a lot of baby showers, and it's the constant draw to the colour pink, and I think the narratives start there. So we're already sort of given a glass ceiling from very young. I know now, and it's excellent in the education system, technology is really pushed in through learning. I think it's Spark or Python. They learn it very, very young, and they're giving females options. And I think once they start to realise their options are bigger than what they thought they were, that's how we get more women into leadership and women into technology. And I also think the women in technology piece has really changed in the last 10 years. I think there are so many more women in technology. And I think initially people might have thought, I have to do engineering. And it's not, there's all the roles that surround technology. And I think we're starting to see a massive push there, which is great. So it's now what you just said, how do we look at the emerging female talent and really support them?
I could not agree more. I think it's absolutely right. It starts from early age. It starts from the right empowerment and right societal infrastructure, which sadly in many countries still does not exist in the right sort of way. And I've been me personally, my background of my family's always been very liberal, and I've always been pushed to be the best that I can be. I have friends and peers for who the narrative has always been, oh, engineering is not family friendly, long hours, you'll need to kind of ensure, and it comes from a very positive place. It comes from parents wanting their children to have a fulfilled life with their perception of family and career and the balance. And in a way, that immediately puts a thought around, oh, is engineering the right sort of the right job? It's competitive, it's full of, it's very sort of male-driven discipline. Do you think you'll succeed? Do you think you'll have an easy ride to ensure that you can kind of dedicate time to the other priorities in life? And that's, those are the type of narratives that I think are shaping people's confidence and are shaping people's choices. Yeah. And in a way, that those are the narratives, to your point, from early age that we need to eradicate. But we need to eradicate only as far as there's the right support, because if maybe 20 years ago it was true, it was really difficult to get into engineering. The hours were incredibly long. Yeah. There was not, because they were very male driven, especially in computing and IT, it was very male driven sort of organization, and it was not a male driven representation. And it wasn't through any malice. People would work long hours because they wouldn't have families, or they would, the tasks in the family would be undertaken by women, so the men could spend a lot of time working. And if there's a working mum who, I'm a mum of a 5-year-old, I do understand what it means grappling with the guilt every single day when you spend half an hour more at work than spending time with your little one. The motherhood will always prevail. And in a way, that's the kind of sad part from 20 years ago, that was not acknowledged, the incredible contribution women can provide should they have the right support. And just in a sort of anecdotal way, I've managed diverse teams, and there's a female trait which I find very interesting. I would have one-to-ones with male and female, very, very efficient, brilliant performers. But the narrative would go, a woman would go, I wanted to do 7 things today, I did only 5, I'm not really happy with myself. And the narrative with men would be like, I wanted to do 5, I did 5, that's great. So there's an intrinsic guilt which we carry anyway, for which I think we need the leaders and the company infrastructures to enable the support, because women can do incredible things even if they don't work the kind of long hours which certain men can do. So the flexibility has to be there in the companies for women not to feel punished, to deal with those sort of unique traits which are very valuable in the marketplace. It's that lots of research has been done on essentially how kind of women high performers and male high performers work, and we need both in the workplace. And male high performers are very much, this is my area, I will kind of do the best that it can, whereas with harnessing their own intelligence, whereas women are really good at harnessing collective intelligence. Yeah, both of those things will work kind of very well hand in hand. So everything you've said resonates with my personal example, but equally with the things that I've kind of sort of observed as part of my career.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great information, actually. I am drawing on that. I think there was a time when people would talk of a glass ceiling for women, and they would call it the glass ceiling, and it's because I'm a female. And I think there's so many layers. There are so many ceilings that you're going through as a woman, as an individual, and dependent on your background. For example, the way I'm Indian African heritage, and my parents, had a traditional arranged marriage and, raised us in the United Kingdom. So for my sister, who was the firstborn, she's older than me, her choices they weren't choices. She was told what she would need to do in her career. She's very artistic. She could be anything she wanted in the creative world, but she was forced to do science, and she excelled at that, and she's got a very successful career. But she was facing glass ceilings that I didn't see, and I was facing glass ceilings that the next woman didn't see from my culture. So when I found it very difficult initially when I moved into technology, that people would talk of this glass ceiling of it's because you're a female. And I used to think, oh, I've got loads more ceilings to get to before I hit female. Actually, being female is the least of my problems when it comes to being in a position, whether it's leadership or technology. And I used to teach economics, so actually, and business. And so actually, for that 8-year career, predominantly I taught boys, because girls are not encouraged to do business or economics. So although I taught some young women, the majority was boys. I've always been pushed into that arena of, well, now you're a female teacher, and at that you're a young female teacher teaching, these subjects. And I think the more women in leadership and women of influence, I'll call it, because sometimes influential women are not necessarily in leadership positions. They might be in an organization, and their sphere of influence is bigger than maybe someone in leadership. But those types of women to start talking about these various glass ceilings that people come from, because I don't think it's talked about enough, to be honest.
I completely agree. I think it's very common example of the family friendly bit that I've spoken about. Some of my friends were discouraged from taking medicine because, again, long hours. So I completely agree. I'm also full of optimism when it comes to this, because I think there's been a huge generational shift in the last 5 to 10 years. And that generational shift comes from people, millennials, who grew up with the internet, and it wasn't sort of a blinkered view of the world. The internet has opened the internet in general and various sort of social platforms, they've opened an incredible amount of ability to find self-expression within the groups that are important for personal growth and for career growth. And equally, the groups that you mentioned, I think it's a hygiene for any company to have groups where people can express essentially the ceilings that are preventing them from providing the biggest value, for the company, for business sense, and also will make them super happy, which then makes them much more valuable employee. In the companies where I worked, there's always been some representation of female sort of women in tech or just women groups. And I've been parts of lots of them, and it almost feels like coming home, because sometimes you just don't need anything else. You just need somebody who will listen. I mean, women normally, I believe, just need cheerleaders. We can do whatever we want, but somebody needs to be a cheerleader to say, do you know what? Yes, I feel that way. You can move on. You can do these things. We don't need people to do the work for us. We just need somebody to for us, and those groups are very good, because not only they're full with practical examples that I would never sort of think about, but equally the cheerleading moment is there, and that is kind of probably the most precious things I've found in these groups, is sort of the sheer commitment to make other women succeed, which I think is super important. And these groups would not just, in some of the companies, and especially in culture, they're not only open to women, they should be open to men.
Agreed.
They should absolutely kind of inclusive in their nature, because what we don't want, and I've seen that at some certain points as well, is sort of the self-fulfilling feminism in companies, which doesn't, sometimes, if done in the wrong way, has a detrimental, again, isolating effect.
Agreed.
So yes, I completely agree with you, and I'm seeing that a lot of these things are already in train, and they're not even discussed. They're basically, the values are not being discussed. That it should happen is more the how and the resources that need to be put behind.
Yeah, that's great. I like your use of cheerleading, because I think you're correct there. I think as humans, we don't necessarily celebrate our wins as much as we should. And as females, we're even worse at doing that, and then females supporting females is even worse at that, so that the percentage goes down and down and down. And we have something in the household that I live in, where if somebody sends a really good email or whatever, because we all work from home, it's very much let's celebrate your win. And even if that's just a coffee and like, well done, I just don't think it's done enough. And I think the pandemic has drastically changed that. We saw like a big increase in mental health issues, and I genuinely believe it's because as human beings, let alone women, we do need some form of acceptance, we need positive reinforcement, we need positive affirmations, and we generally get that in the workplace, and it's a little well done, oh well, you know, anything like that, and we've just not got it anymore. So I really encourage celebrating people, and particularly women if they've done something good. And you're right, they don't need someone to do the work, they need that almost well done cheerlead to go and do it. They, you know, they don't necessarily need the help to do it, which is incredible in itself. In